right from the get-go, I noticed that the Eagles were not fazed by the moment. You could just tell. They were laid back. They had Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz running all over the field. They were catching passes.
Yep.
And the Cowboys, on the other hand, were just, you could tell they were tense.
Yeah.
And it manifested itself throughout the game. To sum it up, I think this does it perfectly. The Cowboys dropped 5 passes. They have the far better receiving core, right?
Yep.
The Philadelphia Eagles are playing Greg Ward Jr. out there. Zach Ertz gets hurt. They drop 0 passes. Dallas Goedert goes 9 for 10. Miles Sanders, Boston Scott eviscerate those linebackers. Sean Lee looks like he's 45. And that's how the Eagles are in the driver's seat.
Yeah, unfortunately for Dallas, there's a couple things that happened, right? Dak got hurt, Amari Cooper got hurt. We were writing an article.
You're calling Amari Cooper hurt?
We're writing an article this week about like sort of what went wrong, right? And I think the biggest thing that went wrong for them is the fact that like some noisy things happened. Dak injured his shoulder last week, and while he was able to throw the ball downfield a little bit this week, he was 1 for 7 or something like that, throwing the ball over 20 yards downfield. He was leading the NFL in that yards on deep passes week 11, right, prior to week 11, and after that he was like a bottom, he's not in the top 10 there. Cooper was a big part of that. And so there were things that I think, you and I and people were counting on Dallas to be, right? Going into the game, they were first in yards per play. I believe first in EPA. And what ended up happening is what we said could happen, which is that Philadelphia just outclasses them. Dallas is not ready to play. And it wasn't exactly the most brilliant performance by the Eagles. They were, basically hanging on for dear life at the end, but ultimately coming off of the bus, being ready to play at home was enough for Philadelphia to, be basically a win away from recapturing the division title for the first time since 2017.
The secondary thing, so the first thing was the Cowboys just didn't show up, right? Dak, you mentioned the big play thing. We thought that would be a huge advantage for them, and it should have been, because they have all these guys that can go down the field, and yet 1 for 7 on throws, 20-plus yards downfield. You can't win a game when your biggest advantage is your receivers and you go 1 for 7 on those big plays.
It also shows you the limitations of the way that they've built their team, right? So DeMarcus Lawrence is the highest paid player in Dallas Cowboys history. He was mostly a non-factor. Jalen Smith, the linebacker they signed before they signed Dak, before they signed Cooper, before they signed Byron Jones, he doesn't even play in this game. As you said, Sean Lee looked like you or me out there in terms of being slow. And then Ezekiel Elliott, right? He gets less than 50 yards rushing because he's out of the game script because they're behind early. It really is one of those things where you really, it rests on the quarterback's shoulders, and then secondary to that, it rests on the coach's shoulders. And while Dallas has, I think, the player at that position to do some things, the combination is just not good enough at this point.
You made the point exactly that I was going to make, which is this shined a light on why you don't pay Zeke Elliott $90 million, because now you have these holes everywhere else. You're trotting Jason Witten out there. Jason Witten, you look like Gronk compared to Jason Witten. I mean, it's ridiculous. He was awful. He's terrible. And then Jason Garrett called this game like he was trying to lose, like he wanted to go somewhere else. I mean, at the end of the half, they have a chance to try and score a touchdown. They're down 10-3, and I wrote this in my notes. It legitimately felt like he had a halftime speech that was like encouraging his guys because they were only down 4, and he didn't want to risk having to tear that halftime speech up. He's like, I can't risk scoring a touchdown because then I'm gonna have to change the score in my script here. It was just like, it was pathetic.
Yeah, it was, and it unfortunately, the Eagles were felled with some of the same things. I mean, they didn't take advantage fully of the circumstances they were in. They kicked 2 extremely long field goals. The
55-yarder on 4th and 4. Yeah.
Our buddy, colleague Moo wrote the article right after Elliott got the extension. And, of course, all we've seen over the past few weeks is the fact that kicker brilliance is not something that particularly carries. And so now looking forward here, right? We both talked about this privately. Okay, if you have some Dallas to win the NFC East futures, you also have some Dallas under 9, which was a win total bet that cashed today for us. do you bet a little bit? So there are all these things that can still happen, and then of course there was a Philadelphia +2 today. Like all those things could possibly happen, and we get into this week now, and Philadelphia is a home favorite by a sizable amount to Washington, who looked game today. Like
to be seen whether Haskins plays.
But Keenum was fine in his stead. And then Dallas, of course, they have a home date, I believe. Dallas has the Washington Redskins this week, right?
Yeah.
And then
so Philly goes
to New York, right? Okay. So there's a legitimate chance. I mean, New York had Philadelphia on a 17-3 backs against the wall.
That's the real point, is that all of these teams suck.
Yeah.
It's not as the reason that the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys are the ones that have a chance to win the division is simply because of, at the beginning of the season, those other teams literally were like a total trash
Well, not
fire.
only do you get right, and
if you restarted the season from like 5 weeks ago, I would. The Giants and the Redskins are right there.
Right. I mean, because you look at this game, so that you look at the Giants game, and everybody's giving us crap about the Tua Tagovailoa thing, but
which I stand firmly by.
Daniel Jones played terrific today.
Great,
but you had to Quinton Dunbar, Fabian Monroe. Two corners that start for that team were out.
He beat the Redskins.
Yeah, he beat Washington
in Week 16.
But then Washington, their group of receivers, not even limited to Scary Terry, but they moved the ball efficiently. So that takes me to this week, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, both of these teams could very well lose as probably double-digit favorites to these two teams that they're facing. And so Dallas isn't out of it. Philadelphia certainly doesn't have it sewn up. And Philadelphia could lose and still win the division because Dallas could very well lose as well.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.